want to ask what you think about the role of competition in science as opposed to cooperation in science. Because competition, of course, is one of the great motivators. Everyone wants to be seen to do well, to be reaching a high level compared to their peers, to get the Nobel Prizes, and to be at the top of the game. But competition can also, of course, be very destructive, as we're seeing not so far from here at the moment. And you also made the point that cooperation is very important for the largest projects because they can't be done by any one institution or any one person or even one country. So how do we get the right balance between cooperation and competition?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes, we have lived this kind of situation 25 years ago. It was very, very, very aggressive, competitive, and so on. So we have discussed this kind of problem. And it's, I would say the best example we can compare is the problem of the tennis. You can imagine, you can put some name of the big champions and so on, Federer, because I'm Swiss, and other people, and they are fighting very strongly during the, and then after the end, they are going to have a drink together. So I believe this is, I will not give names, but we have sometimes some very strong competition with colleagues from different parts of the world, but we really enjoy to have dinner together and to hike in mountain and things like this. So I believe some level of competition is good. It's very stimulating.
I disagree.
Oh, okay. Good.
I grew up in a serious world of competition. I was a competitive tennis player when I was young, so I understand competition, and I think competition is something that drove me in a certain way. But I think, as illustrated, as scientists, progress comes because of our curiosity to do something to understand nature, not to beat the guy next to us. If you need that, I think it's a distraction, personally. I've been in very competitive science, but I personally think it's a distraction. We don't need competition to advance ourselves in science. It's built into society, and it happens, and two groups want to do the same thing, but I don't think it's fundamental to progress in science.
I agree.
Oh, yes, I agree. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I agree with Barry. There's a prime example in neutrinos double beta decay, for example, where two experiments that were, you could say, in competition. I'm referring in particular to Majorana and Gerda, that back a number of years ago realized that rather than staying in competition, they should continue on their separate tracks, but share information as completely as they can between the experiments and commit to, in fact, combining their work with the next generation experiment. Because they were in a situation where if they did not discover something, then they would want a larger, more complex, state-of-the-art experiment to try to push it further. If they did see something, they would be in a situation where they needed the same type of detector in order to explore it in more detail. The result of it was that they cooperated. They had two different types of technology. They're now working together on exactly that larger scale experiment using the best elements of the two technologies that they explore. I think it's a wonderful approach for international science, for people to recognize that the objective in the experiments is the advancement of knowledge. It's the attempt to get a good result rather than personal coming first. And there's an example where it worked and worked very well and is continuing. The worry in the first place from both sides of the two experiments, and actually at that point I was participating in one of them, was that our funding agencies will want us to win. The answer was that the funding agencies didn't feel that. They felt, look, I can see where this is going. You're going to want something bigger the next time round for the reasons I just expressed. And the funding agency said, great, if there's something bigger, it'll be shared 50-50. And so it worked on all levels of the sort of things that are pressure on scientists to do their work. So I would like to see that happen more in situations where there are obvious competitions for them to share the information and get the science advanced more quickly in the process.
Yeah, I would like to add something to just make sure there is a good understanding what's going on in the mind of scientists, because maybe not familiar for everybody. Competition cannot be the driving force of any successful scientist. It's really the curiosity and maybe the obsessions to reach something. Then, of course, there is a perception of competition, because when you really want to do something, you will strive, you will do a lot of all what you can do to do it, because you're so curious, you're so obsessed that you may have the perception that you're competing. In a way, it's a competitive field by the fact that the people doing that are really seriously, I think, emotionally connected to the science they're doing. But it's not the competition itself which is driving. No, any successful scientist knows perfectly, because it must have happened plenty of time in their career. I mean, if you do something new, it's quite often because you have had a nice conversation with somebody else, or you read somebody else, or maybe you meet somebody and together you build up something, and you share expertise with someone that is fixing one of the problems you cannot fix, and then you work together. So actually, it's way more a team play than it is a selfish competitions. And that is really what we all experience. And when you have teams like, I mean, it's 21 institutions, so many countries, and telescope like the ELT, I can tell you the only way to build it is to better agree to work it together. Otherwise, there is no chance you can make it work at all. So competition is a side product, it's just a detail, but certainly not the motivations of a scientist, of a serious scientist. It should not be.